Well, greetings. It's just about 11 a.m. On the East Coast of the United States. And welcome, everybody. I'm Professor Tamer Çavuşgil. We come to you from Georgia State University CIBER, Center for International Business Education and Research. If you are a regular participant in our webinar series, you know that we have been running these informative webinars for international business educators since April 2020, and featuring distinguished speakers from around the world on international business education, pedagogy, practice, certainly, trade policies, and other matters as well. If you are new to our webinars, please come back and watch another one in the series. And let me also remind you that these webinars are recorded and made available to you on our GSU-CIBER website, as well as on our YouTube channel. So please share those recordings with your colleagues in your network as well. Now, these webinar series are sponsored by 10 CIBERs, Centers of Excellence in International Business Education, recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, and we have the pleasure of organizing and delivering these webinars on their behalf. Let me mention that today's webinar is atypically 90 minutes. Typically, we run these for 60 minutes, but today we have distinguished speakers from around the world again on a very important topic, so we will extend the discussion to about an hour and a half. When you exit the webinar at the end of 90 minutes, you will be receiving an email with a short survey, 5 short questions. Please respond to those. We take advantage of your ideas for future events, so please do respond to that. Everyone except the panelists in this webinar is muted, but welcome to use Q&A function. And we look forward to your comments and questions, and we'll have plenty of time to respond to most of those during our conversation today. If you have a question for one of our distinguished and talented staff people, please use the chat function. There will be one handout. I believe that we have today only one PowerPoint presentation, and we'll be sharing those with you after the webinar as well. So with that, let me get to the topic. Today's topic is sort of a continuation from last week when we covered international entrepreneurship, an important issue from a research perspective. And our colleagues, Manuel Serapio and Nicole Coviello, provided a very informative session for you. That webinar recording is available now, and take a look at it if you missed it. Today, we have Nicole and Manuel coming back to us with a couple of additional distinguished speakers you'll be hearing from. Today's discussion is on teaching international entrepreneurship, instruction in international entrepreneurship. We'll be covering a lot of resources with you and ideas for integrating international entrepreneurship topics into your teaching. Let me also just start saying a couple of things about our distinguished organizers of this session. Manuel, welcome to you from UC Denver, University of Colorado, Denver, where you direct the Center for International Business Education and Research, our partner organization in the MSI Consortium, and you serve as an international business professor there. And we have featured you in our past events, so I think our participants need very little introduction. Nicole Coviello, I think most of you know her and her scholarship, outstanding scholarship in international entrepreneurship. Nicole comes to us from Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada, and welcome, Nicole. So those are very brief introductions. I apologize for that, but I'd like to make sure that we have enough time for today's conversation, as well as also an opportunity to hear from Sarah and Julie as well, who will be joining us today. So with that, let me turn to Manuel. Manuel, give us an overview of what to expect in today's conversation, and also say a few words about Julie and Sarah, please.
Yeah, Dr. Kavushgal-Tamir, thank you very much for hosting this event. I'm always looking forward, to this joint event that we do, and hopefully, next year we can do this in person in Atlanta. Let me also recognize the GSU-CIBER, team, Paula, Leon, Michael, for organizing this, and also my team at the CU Denver, Karen and Jingting Liu, and other assistants who are also here, with us this morning. Thank you to the CIBER for hosting this, the U.S. Department of Education, and our partner CIBERS, is in sponsoring this. As Tamir mentioned, we had an excellent session last week focusing on international entrepreneurship from a research perspective. So today, we're going to focus on teaching. Specifically, we're going to focus on how do you enhance digital globalization content in your IE courses. What I would like to do is give you first a background of our journey, developing and implementing our course in international entrepreneurship at CU Denver. And then we are going to talk about the latest 2 editions that we have on digital globalization, focusing on blockchain and emerging technologies impacting international entrepreneurship, and then talk about global e-commerce. I requested Dr. Cabiello Nicole to share with us resources that one can use when teaching the digital aspects of international entrepreneurship, and she has put together an excellent set of resources. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So if you can post at any time your questions, we'll do our best to address all of them. So our format today will mostly be conversational. So let me just spend a few minutes to set the stage. We have a short poll here. See if it works. So why don't we start with that? Karen and Michael, just spend a couple of minutes if you can be kind enough to answer the poll. Karen? So 4 questions. Are you currently teaching a course in IE? Are you planning to teach a course in IE? Are you interested in adding more entrepreneurship content to your IB course? Are you interested in adding more IB content to your entrepreneurship course? Take a couple of minutes to answer those, please. Great. Well, thank you very much for participating in the poll, and it's good to know, the strong interest in teaching a course in international entrepreneurship, as well as enhancing your IB course or entrepreneurship course in again by adding the international content. So thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or would like more resources as you develop your course. This is what we do at CU Denver in collaboration with GSU and our other partners, again trying to advance this field of international entrepreneurship. So let me just say a few words about our journey. The opportunities that we address, the challenges that we face. So next slide, Karen. So let me start with the why. We're one of those schools that started quite early, developing and implementing this international entrepreneurship course. We started in the late 1990s. And this was really driven by our partnership with a number of business organizations. And I have just listed 3 here. One is Coors Brewing Company, the company that preceded what is now called Molson Coors. Of course, you recognize Starbucks, and Western Union. The chief international officer at Coors Brewing Company at the time shared this observation with me, and to this day I still remember it. And he said that, Manuel, we like our partnership. We like recruiting your students. They're very good. They're very bright. But then, we face certain challenges, and we're playing in a space where we're either number 3 in the US or number 7 in the world in the beer business. So we really have to be creative, innovative, and he used the word entrepreneurial in what we do. So when we talk to your students and have them, solve the puzzle for us in terms of route to market, for example, they can tell us the advantages of exporting versus licensing or foreign direct investment. But when I put forward the deal and have them look at it, a term sheet or so, and ask them, can you tell me what is good here or what's not going to work? What do you want to add? They're a bit lost. So what we would like you to do is incorporate in your courses more of the how. How do you do this? And they're also very good if the opportunities are presented to them. But it becomes a challenge when I ask them, to identify, the opportunities. Western Union, later also shared the same observation with us. This was, Western Union excels in moving money from point A, to point B. They have developed a unit called the Global Business Development Unit. Also, another Michael, was heading it. And, Mr. Yarrington Michael at the time, said that we need to come up with new ways of moving money from point A to point B. So at about the time, they were developing what is now called the gift card. So a unit at Western Union called Value Link was developing it. And sure enough, Starbucks said, we really want this, and we want to take this as fast as possible to international markets, including, Japan. And so with these things, I observed, reflected on this, that maybe there's an opportunity for us to change what we do in the Introduction to International Business course and our other international business courses, and incorporate more of the house. So we started developing a course or redesigning a course. The IB course, the traditional IB course, we enhanced the entrepreneurial dimensions of the course. So we focus on identifying international entrepreneurial opportunities, translating these ideas into international ventures, developing route to market strategies to international markets, and making sure our students know the how-to aspects of this, not just to talk about it, but to actually implement it, and to design and implement key processes to establish, grow, and manage and exit international ventures. So I engaged the two Michaels in this, and I asked them to help us design this course. So what they did is they reverse engineered their deals, those that were successful and those that were not successful, and draw from it some principles. So this is how we got our start. It is actually a course in IB with entrepreneurial dimensions. Let me just note that during this time, the challenge that we faced, those that gave us pushback, was not really other disciplines, but our own IB discipline, who said that, no, we're happy with what we're doing. There is no need to do this. Remember, this is very, very early, and international entrepreneurship was very early at the time. So instead of launching a course right away on international entrepreneurship, the politically right thing to do to address that pushback was to keep the course, but then to increase the entrepreneurial dimensions. I don't know if you'll have, same experience or similar experience in your institutions. Next slide, please, Karen. And so after 2005 or before 2005, what I did was I reached out to other colleagues. And Walter Kummerly and I have worked on a number of projects before. He was at the Harvard Business School. He just published a book on international entrepreneurship, focusing mostly on entrepreneurial finance. So we talked about it, and we said, if you're developing a course, a new course, what will it look like? And then I reached out to Patricia McDougall, Colvin, one of the pioneer scholars in this field. And again, we talked about it. How can research inform teaching in international entrepreneurship? And we also decided, Walter, Tricia, and I decided that we are going to share our experience with others. Thus, we launched this faculty development program in international entrepreneurship. We have offered this to over 500 faculty members in several hundred schools in 35 countries. So it has been a lot of fun. And so I just would like to acknowledge, again, these two colleagues, particularly Dr. McDougall-Covitt, who has done a lot in advancing the field and working with us on this faculty development in international entrepreneurship program. In fact, Tricia made sure that after she retired, we reach out to Nicole, and I'm so pleased that Nicole, has accepted our invitation, to lead the research session of the International Entrepreneurship Program. So this slide shows you what the course covered. Later, I reach out to Donna Kelly at Babson, and how do we enhance the comparative entrepreneurship aspect, of the course. Next slide. So in the next phase, we decided to enhance the digital globalization content of the course. And this is what we're going to focus on. We were informed and influenced quite heavily by the work of McKinsey, looking at 21st century globalization, digital globalization versus 20th century, globalization. And you're all familiar with this. These are the differences between this stage of globalization. In 2014, we applied for our renewal as a cyber grant, and we said we're going to expand the digital globalization content of our international entrepreneurship program. In 2018, again, when we reapplied for redesignation, we didn't back down. We said we're going to double down on this. Not only are we going to enhance the digital globalization content of our courses, we are going to change our Masters of Science in International Business program and focus more on digital globalization. Several of our students are here with us, and the feedback that we have received from them has been quite favorable. Many of our students who want to work in this space, who have recently graduated, who are looking for internships, have found excellent opportunities in various companies nationally, as well as here in Colorado. There is a reason why we did this. And that is, number one, the constituents that we serve in Colorado. We are a hub for digital globalization. A third of our economy is focused on high tech. You look at various indicators in terms of number of workers working in technology per capita. We're one of the highest. We are an innovation hub. We are in the top 5. We're a very, very popular destination for millennials and Gen Z generation. They're coming here. Again, many of them are engaged in work related to high-tech entrepreneurship. I think the same case, with Nicole's, location, there in Waterloo. So it just made sense for us. Let me just end by sharing with you some of the lessons that we learned, and then I'll turn it over to Sarah and Julie. Next slide, Karen. So what we learned is many of these things that we need to cover is really above our pay grade as an academic. So we had to be humble, and we had to admit that. And the best way to do that, to address that, again, limitation, is to partner with industry. And so what we did was, we formed a group, and we engaged with these subject matter experts from industry. And we were very lucky because they also agreed to teach modules or sessions for us. And in the case of Julie from IBM, she is one of our graduates. She agreed to do the blockchain course for us. And one of our colleagues, Stacy Espinosa, who did the workshop last year, is from Visa, and her expertise is on global payments. This time around, we're very, very fortunate to have Sarah Carroll, who specializes on cross-border e-commerce, lead our initiatives on global e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, leveraging her work on Growth Global. We also learned that it is very important to establish academic partnerships within your schools and with others, because many of them are also doing this. To give you an example, our Jake Jobs Center for Entrepreneurship has been doing work on digital strategies for entrepreneurs, and so we develop a badging, program, with them, for our students. Arts and media have been doing this, and especially moving forward, they're focusing more on tokenization, which is very relevant to their business of arts and media. And so we are partnering with them. Cybersecurity is always front and center in this digital world, so we're partnering with our risk management insurance program. One thing that we also learn is we continue a relationship with our students who are in the program. So we have asked them to, co-create the course, co-produce the course with us, even after they have completed the program. So one of our graduates is now working for Accenture, working on a number of things that's digital. He comes back and he tells us, how can we, actually expand or enrich our course. I'll be happy to share with you our experience in the Q&A. If you have anything that you're dealing with, in particular in your respective universities, please, let us know. Let me now turn this over.
Let me just ask a
Yes.
question. It seems like you have this course at the master's level, right?
Yes.
Do you also teach IE at the undergraduate level? Some of our participants may be interested in designing one at the undergrad level.
Yeah, excellent question, Tamir. And my colleague is here, Jim Lupresti, and he teaches this, I think, both at the graduate and undergraduate level. And in fact, he takes a group of students to Barcelona, for this. But to answer your question, this is the next phase. This is what we have proposed in our next current cyber grant. And so we are going to redesign our international business undergraduate program and focus more on international entrepreneurship.
And it's interesting how how the course is evolved and now incorporates the digital economy into interest. Yeah, so that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamir.
Manuel, I
yes.
also have a quick question of clarification. Sorry, as one of the
No
other
problem.
people here. Are you talking about an IE course or a program? Because it sounds like when I'm looking at this slide, it feels more like a program rather than just a specific course.
It started as a course.
Okay.
It started as modules in a course, and then it became a course. We no longer just have an intro to IB with entrepreneurial dimension. We have an international entrepreneurship course. And then we decided, let's change our MS in international business program and focus more on the international entrepreneurship dimension. So we have two specialization called digital globalization, and we also have specialization that's related on supply chain in global, e-commerce. And then the next stage, we're going to, our leaders at CU Denver, they are focusing on lifelong learning. And the next stage for us are credentialing programs, certificates and badges, for students, including our own students who graduated way back and wants to add the digital content. So that's part of Sarah's role, where we're going to work with companies as they transition to global e-commerce, for example. Does that answer your question, Nicole? Yeah, thank you. So now let me just turn it over to Julie and to Sarah. I have, just to get things started, I have a few questions for them, so we can help set the stage. So two areas that we added in our program focus on technology, driving international business, globalization, international entrepreneurship. And then the second one is on global e-commerce. If I may, just a few words about Julie. Julie Tracy Lockwood is associate partner with IBM Consulting, and she oversees the technology platforms and supply chain assets for IBM. IBM has made a big bet, on this, particular space. She manages products for IBM built on IBM Cloud, and she has led, as I said, initiatives on the blockchain impacting the global supply chain. Sarah Carroll is founder and CEO of Grow Global. Grow Global is a consultancy specializing in global e-commerce. We've shared her bio with you. She has done very extensive work helping companies, particularly companies in emerging economies, embrace e-commerce and global, e-commerce. And she published a book in 2018, which has become an Amazon bestseller on this particular topic. Julie and Sarah, welcome. Julie, if I may, let me start, with you. We have had this partnership for over 5 years now, Julie, and again, it started, with you teaching modules for us on blockchain and emerging technologies impacting international entrepreneurship. Then you rolled out a course on that, particular topics. If you can share with us, what is it that you cover in the topic, in the course?
Yeah, so the course is really meant to be a practicum on international business and technology with a deep focus in blockchain as the enabling technology. So the course is made up of a couple of components. We have speakers from the industry of technology and international business, and we do a digital badging program where the students are able to gain a real acclaim badge that can be used and shared to show their skills in blockchain technology. And then we do group projects and lectures around the intersection of technology and international business. So some of the topics include cloud, big data, cryptocurrency, AI and machine learning, as well as IoT, which is Internet of Things devices. And this year we added quantum computing. And we put that all through the lens of the McKinsey globalization structure to understand how technology structures provide opportunities for business students to either reinvent a business or disrupt a current operation.
Thanks, Julie. And I remember how this started, and I also remember a comment that you made recently. And you shared with me that the perspectives of your students vis-a-vis blockchain, has changed. And could you shed light on that? How so? And what is the change in perspective all about?
Yeah, well, the industry itself has seen a tremendous amount of change in the last 3 to 5 years. I'm sure many of you can appreciate the fact that back in the early days, people said blockchain and they immediately thought Bitcoin. I think that's changing now that we all know that there's opportunity in the fintech cryptocurrency space that's separate from the enterprise blockchain space. And when we started teaching these modules, everyone wanted to know how blockchain worked, the conceptualization of a machine-to-machine based authentication layer that kept track of assets digitally was very difficult to conceptualize. And so we talked a lot about consensus models, which are the underpinning of how the machine-to-machine technology worked. I remember even somebody asking, who are the developers on the Bitcoin platform? And the reality is that the code makes it such that there are no developers. There's actually no people running Bitcoin. So that was a really big conceptual hurdle that we had to get over in the early days. And I think now, if anyone, the students have took to it very naturally, in that now people don't want to talk about consensus models. They want to talk about the business opportunities around enterprise technology and the maturity curve around technology. What do you start with? What do you go to next? And how can you add technology to every business model, whether small, medium, mom and pop type business or large enterprise type business?
And thanks, Julie. So it's very exciting, to see this evolve, and very exciting to see, our students, embrace this. I know next week we're going to have a couple of presentations by students, what they have developed, out of this course. But if you could share with us some examples of what students have come up with by way of, entrepreneurial ventures international entrepreneurial ventures?
Yeah, so next week we're hosting an innovation exchange where we invite tech investors as well as other professors from around the world to talk to us about some of our students' invention. And this was really born out of the idea that the students present some really great ideas in class, and how can we allow others to view those ideas to change the paradigm shift in terms of decentralized autonomous organizations, which is the ultimate goal of blockchain. So one of my current students, as a single student, recently won the entrepreneurial case study at CU Denver, where he's won $30,000 to start his idea. And it's basically a QR scanning, and the QR scanning connects to a cryptocurrency platform that allows consumers to get a coupon for the spirits industry when they're at a bar or restaurant, and encourages buying behavior. So he won last week $30,000 to start that venture on his own and to follow a complex regulatory landscape around, alcohol and spirits in Colorado. So that was a really big success. The two projects that we have speaking next week at our Innovation Exchange, one is a blockchain-based pet insurance company. And believe it or not, there's no pet insurance exchanges where you can shop for pet insurance like you do health insurance. So it will provide an exchange platform that envisions the final, some of the final developments in their technology roadmap is to create NFTs of a pet that you may have lost or want to memorialize in some way. So they're infusing technology to be the central platform for all pet owners, whether dog, cat, fish, or bird. So that's a pretty interesting use case. Another one is solving traffic congestion. If you're familiar with Colorado, we have a very tight corridor called I-70, and it's where all the ski traffic goes to the mountains. So this blockchain solution will tokenize and incentivize skiers to leverage other activities other than just racing up to the slopes and racing back to the Front Range where most of the population lives. And the really neat application of this technology is that it could be used anywhere worldwide where there is people or traffic congestion to incentivize behaviors to change the landscape of the congestion. So I thought those were some of the best use cases that came out of our class this year.
We're looking forward to it, Julie. In fact, what has happened is one of my board members who developed a business and was acquired 2 or 3 times. The acquirer was acquired. So finally, a month ago, he told me, I've decided to retire from this, and I want to fund ventures, and I want to go into blockchain. So I connected him with Julie, and hopefully some of the students will get him excited and get him to fund some of these ventures. We'll get back to Julie and blockchain in our Q&A, but let's also look at global e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce. Sarah, again, welcome. We've talked about this. We've talked about the powerful development of, again, e-commerce, global e-commerce becoming a very viable route to market for many companies, including entrepreneurial companies. And it is for this reason that we have incorporated this, in our program, in our International Entrepreneurship course, and in the MSIB program. And Sarah, you have facilitated these sessions. And again, I apologize because you do this past midnight, in London.
2 a.m. Yeah.
2 a.m. And you've always been, very generous, with your time. Could you shed some light on the topics that you cover under the, these, topics of e-commerce and global cross-border e-commerce, digital marketing and sales in particular is what you have emphasized.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm coming from a very practical point of view of being like a practitioner and a consultant, helping people to, to actually implement it on the ground. So sort of the opposite in a way, I guess, from an academic point of view coming through. But yeah, we cover, first of all, I think we always just try and cover what the opportunity is there. I mean, I think with a lot of the students coming through that you don't need convincing that, you know, digital is the way to go, and especially after the last 2 years that we've had. So we look at what I call the global or the international digital opportunity. And then we go in and look at all the different options that you can achieve that. Now, I did a lot of our work originally within the UK, working for the UK government, which is now the Department for International Trade. So at the time when I wrote my book and was thinking about this and how we could share this more widely, I think I came down to the point that people were getting really confused about digital, and they didn't really know how to spend the digital budget if they actually had one. So then, you know, then I started talking about thinking that it was important to explain to them really like the difference between digital sales and digital marketing. So we cover that off within the course. And I think it just, the distinction between those actually adds a little bit of clarity, because often people don't know whether they should be like, you know, should I do some social media? Should I list my products on Amazon? Should I write some blogs? You know, the list goes on and nobody really knows what to do. So we cover off the digital sales and the digital marketing. So the digital sales is looking at how you actually earn revenue. Let's put it that way. And so that's the, you know, having your own website for lead generation, the e-commerce websites for online sales. It would be online marketplaces like Amazon, Etsy's, or, you know, country specific ones. We're doing some work for Georgia, not Georgia, USA, Georgia, the country at the moment. And yeah, they've made sales literally last week by listing on specific healthcare, their pharma type companies. You know, literally they made 5 sales within a week. You know, that I'm always astounded how quickly people can increase their online revenues. So we look at that, and then we also look at social commerce. So that's opening up a Facebook shop, Instagram shop, and then there's also chat or conversational commerce, which is like WhatsApp and WeChat as well in other countries. And then the last one, the digital sales platform, which is actually quite a powerful one, is actually selling through third parties online as well. So we cover off all of those and have a speak about those. And then we also look at the digital marketing channels. Now, obviously, there's a lot more digital marketing channels, and obviously everybody, yeah, I mean, there's lots of things, but it's things like, you know, we don't actually go into the detail yet, but it would be great to be able to do that in the future. So it's like, you know, SEO, social media posting, paid search, paid social, e-newsletters, and like going through all of this, affiliates, influencers, and all the time the digital marketing channels are changing. And some are becoming more effective, but also there's a lot of hype that some are out there, people think they should be doing, but they don't actually work in practice. They don't drive sales or they don't drive leads. So yeah, we look at that. And then we also look a little bit, don't we, about what's coming next in the future as well, to make sure that people are looking at it like sort of AI using e-commerce as well. So those are the main topics I think that we've been through so far.
Great, Sarah, and again, you know, when we put this together, we said, you know, we'll try to do this in 2 sessions or 1 session, and you know, we were very concerned, is this, you know, really going to work? But it's amazing how, you know, students, you know, have shared with me the presentations that you made it so clear for them, you know, the difference between the two and how one reinforces, you know, the other. What we have planned is moving forward, we'll work directly with companies. In Colorado alone, there are 7,000 small and medium-sized companies. Many of them are exporters. Many of them are actually migrating to digital sales. A number of them would like to do so. So we're going to work, you know, directly with them. And what, you know, you put together for them is, you know, this international digital journey. And so you want to map it out and show them where they are and where they can go. Could you tell us a bit about this international digital journey model, you know, that you have?
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I have quite a lot of fun when I'm running workshops and things with the actual companies themselves, because they sort of like start like not wanting to hide where they actually think they are on the journey. So basically, as I was saying, we've worked with hundreds, now I've worked with literally hundreds and hundreds of companies. They're all small and medium-sized companies, or even micro companies. And some of the work we've been doing with the UN in Africa, they've actually just been like agripreneurs. You know, you were talking about that a little bit earlier. But so, yeah, and what I've seen is, obviously with this massive sample of companies, is that some companies will just go ahead and do it. And like I said, like a week later, they can be getting online sales. But other people have been taking 10 years to go through it. So obviously when I was writing the book, I had some time for contemplation. I was like, what is happening here and why is that? So I could just give you an example. I had a client that came to a seminar with me in like 2008. And then she didn't like start updating her website at all until 2016, you know, and she could have been doing that 8 years. She could have been generating leads. She could have been making sales. Yeah, it breaks my heart really that she didn't really do anything. But then we had another client came to us, and they had like some amazing e-commerce websites that were already making like £1 million in the UK, and they decided to launch into the US with their website by making a US version of their website. And within a year, that was also making £1 million, you know, like £1 million off the website. So it's like, you know, quite interesting really to just see the different approach. So it's like, you know, why have some succeeded and like make really good progress and others not doing? So I came up with this international digital journey, and really the whole hope is, as I'll explain to you now, but is that what all of us can, and by, you know, educating the students, working with the companies, we can get people to go through these stages as quickly as possible without making the mistakes that everybody else is making. So the journey is, if you can imagine, like a triangle, a pyramid, and at the bottom you've got the educate level. So this is basically a stage where people don't even really know that they should be using digital. And I think that's probably changed a bit now after the pandemic. I think that's brought that really into focus. But they haven't really thought about going international as well, because as I said, mostly we work with exporters or people who are doing services internationally as well. So that's the first level, is the educate, that they don't really know that they should be doing it. Then the next level up is procrastinate. So this is my favorite stage that we have to get people out of. So basically at this stage, they're like going, yeah, you know, I should be doing this, but, you know, they don't quite get round to it. And it just stays on the to-do list, right? And they just say it's all too complicated and I don't know where to start. And always something else is higher priority. So that's the second stage. The third stage is deviate. So this stage is where people finally decide that they're actually going to start looking into this like digital thing. But they say, right, if you're going to have to do it, they're going to do it as cheaply as possible. And they're going to do it in their spare time. And they really don't give it the proper resources it needs. They ask around and it's somebody's cousin's brother, you know, that ends up building the website or doing their social media or whatever for them. So that's why it's called deviate. They sort of do it, but not like we'd like. So the next stage is stage 4. Now this is called orientate, and this is like where we really need to start working, you know, with the companies and helping to inform them. So like I said, they don't make the mistakes and they can leap forward. So at this stage, it's where a company sort of is starting to regroup a bit, I'd say, you know, and taking digital seriously. And they start to, like, you know, by trial and error, really start getting sales or start getting leads through their digital presence. But, you know, they're getting small results, not really big results. But it's enough to convince them that there's something in this digital approach. And so it must be worth investing more time and money into it. So then we get to the interesting bit. So stage 5 is what I call dedicate. So at this stage, the companies are really sort of embracing digital and making it a core part of their business. And it's when it gets like a bit more exciting now, because everything's starting to perform, you're monitoring it, you've probably got somebody employed to do digital, like an e-commerce manager, and you really do feel at this point that you can't survive or grow the business without like embracing digital further. Now, all the way up to here, if you see what I'm mentioning, it, all the first 5 stages, and this is the really interesting bit when you're talking about international e-commerce, it's usually carried out in the home country. There are companies that are what we call born global, you know, they go international from day one, but mostly if you're working with like domestic companies, then all those first 5 stages they sort of go through before they start doing anything internationally. So if we get to the top of my triangle now, is where we start doing the international bit. And you've got this stage, which is when I call duplicate, or this is how they should do it anyway. A lot of them run before they can walk. So stage 6 is duplicate. So this is where you would select one new country to go to, like the example I gave you. They've been successful in the UK, and then they go to the US. And from this stage, you really start to build the revenue. But also what you have to do, what they should be doing anyway at this stage, is starting to processize, this digitalization and this global e-commerce. So when they go to their next market, that they already know what stages and what needs to change and what needs to be looked at and what could be an issue. So then my stage 7 at the top is called replicate. And at this stage, you're now like really confident that you're going to grow your business online, and you've got a priority list. You've done your market research in the countries you're going to enter and how you're going to enter those markets. You're building up the skills within your business as well. And that might be in the local markets to actually just make it happen as efficiently as you possibly can. And then the pinnacle at the top, the stage 8 is what we call proliferate, because at this stage, you're now like driving growth across all your multiple digital channels and using all the digital marketing channels that I just spoke of, and you're going into multiple channels. And we have companies here that can almost like get to the thing where they can roll out every 3 to 6 months because they know the process and that they can go there. So it's just a little triangle. I think on the handout you have been given or are going to be given, we've got like the little diagram in there, so you can see visually what I've just been describing.
Thank you, sir. And I'm looking forward to implementing this with the companies that we work here first in Colorado, and then in the Rocky Mountain states. Tamir, maybe good time for us to have a discussion on e-commerce and blockchain and emerging technologies before Nicole and I talk about resources that one can use in their courses. You have any questions, Tamir, or while I monitor the questions that we have on the chat board. So please feel free to type in your questions on the chat, and we'll be happy to address them.
I don't see anything yet in the way of questions, but I can ask a question to Sarah on most recent comments. Thank you, Sarah, for describing this journey and step-by-step approach. What has been your experience in terms of the response from the companies carrying on this journey? Do they? Are there some leaders and some laggers? What is the profile of the really dedicated company? What is it that they do that lead them, that get the most out of their international e-commerce? What is it? Is it the managerial interest, management interest? Is it the resources? Is it the type of industry they're in, or products that they feature? Are there some success factors there?
I mean, there are lots of sort of practical success factors, I guess, that are in there. But I would say, and this is probably the same for most things in life, I think mostly it's mindset and commitment. Comes down to the human, like the human will to want to actually to do this and to understand that it needs to be done. I mean, we've used, we've been training now, especially during the pandemic, with the UN across lots of different countries. Most of my work before, I did some work in Trinidad, but also most of it was in the UK and New Zealand, trade and enterprise. And even there, you've got all different size companies in all different sectors, and the approach works basically, and that also works whether you're selling products or services. It's the same approach. You just have to tailor it for that. And I would say even there, there are companies you could see would have been, have an absolutely amazing opportunity because we can work out what the demand is going to be digitally for their products or services ahead of time. And yet they still don't do it. Yeah. So I think it comes, a lot of it does come down at the end of the day to that. So, that's what we need to, work on with them. And a lot of what I do is actually, just encouraging them and motivating them and being, bubbly and just telling them they can do it, and then coaching them to support them to do that. And a lot of our programs now, that's what we do, and that's what we're doing in Georgia now with some pharmaceutical companies. So
You mentioned also born global e-commerce companies. Carol Finnegan, our colleague also from Colorado, is interested. She's asking, does a born global go through these stages faster, or is there a different pathway to proliferate?
yeah, I mean, I think that they just go, I mean, you could say that they just do it at launch, but I guess they've had to go through them like prior, but like you say, very, very quickly. I mean, I work as a mentor on London and Partners. It's like the London Promotion Board, and they have a program there for international businesses. In fact, they're over in the States at the moment, in San Francisco, I think they were today, and Los Angeles, they're there. And yeah, and I mean, with them, a lot of them are software companies, and so obviously the minute they launch, they are global, right? But they still have to, consider all of these. But what tends to happen, I must say, is that they tend to launch just in English, which is fine. I mean, there's however many other 1.75 billion people that speak English in the world, so it's a good starting point. And then they tend to do the localization, further down the line as they get clients and as they roll out into new territories.
Oh, you had a question for Julie, I believe.
Yes. So, Julie, Nicole has these questions, and she says, she's really impressed with the effort to implement blockchain and quantum into our courses, your courses. Do you have the students work directly with such companies, or where are we now on this?
Yeah, so we don't have students that are doing internships. However, we do a lab, and the lab gives them real world experience with the blockchain solution. It's a very simple blockchain based on insurance models, and it's coded through our class, working in combination with the information technology school. And so the students get real hands-on experience. And to be honest, there's only a handful of companies, from an entrepreneurial perspective and an enterprise perspective in this space. So expecting them to do an internship is probably a little premature. But I have had 2 students that the year after graduation and taking my course started jobs in the technology sector, specifically because of this course. One of them went to work at Accenture and is leading a CBDC, a central bank digital currency project at Accenture. So if they can talk the talk, there's very much a demand for business students in the technology space. And part of that is a paradigm shift, because a lot of students think that they need to be coders to be business people in technology. And the reality is the technology industry needs smart thinkers. There's a shortage of staff in the technology industry right now, and they need people who can talk to CIOs, CTOs, and developers all at the same time and bring that international perspective.
And let me add to that, Julie and Nicole, that's coming. Karen, my colleague, has put together 36 supply chain, logistics, operations, transportation company who will be working with us on projects that deal with blockchain and global e-commerce. And the main hurdle that we have there is we want to make sure we're ready, and they're ready, they want to do it. And so they are hiring our students as interns, but I think what makes more sense is for us to be engaged with them in the co-creation of our courses, so that when students get to the internship phase, they're even more ready. So they're the most excited about this. And as I said, yeah, Karen, we have about 36 companies. This question
Can I just comment on that as well? I really want to highlight something that you said, Julie, and also you, Manuel, is that this is being done in collaboration with other faculties. So with the ITS people or the information technology people, and then with supply chain. So it's not just IB or marketing, it has to be integrated. And not surprised that there's not a lot of companies in the space. In blockchain, there's even way fewer in quantum, and we're a hotbed of quantum. This is kind of Canada's heart of quantum research here in Vancouver. But I've definitely learned, if people are wanting to build an international entrepreneurship course, it's the cross disciplinary integration and learning is really important.
Thanks,
that,
Nicole.
Julie, you mentioned the need to be multidisciplinary in a sense. You talked about some of your students excelling by developing multiple skill sets. What's your advice for faculty who are on this call, on this webinar with us? I mean, what kind of message should we be relaying to our students? How should they prepare themselves while they're in the school at the university for today's economy, so that they have the access opportunities to these jobs? And then if you want to share anything with your course, anything about your course, maybe people can contact you. Sounds like you're doing a great job, a very interesting job with that course. That would be great as well. Thank you, Julie.
Yes, of course. So I think one of the most important things is understanding that technology is going to be infused in almost any type of business application for the future. So whatever that technology is really a side point, but knowing how to leverage data as the new commodity. So any sized business can collect data, organize that data, and modernize that data to learn more about our customers. So we're all in the education of business. So hopefully we're thinking about how to teach our students to grow revenue. And that's a really good way to grow revenue, is learning more about your clients through technology. And another way to help businesses is to reduce costs using technology. So I find that the students are really intuitive if they're led down a path of thinking about how technology can be used. So for example, one of the use cases that we start with that's really easy to understand is a digital twin. A digital twin is a representation of something that's happening from an operational perspective that can be viewed in a kind of an alternate technology landscape. So for example, if you think of a offshore oil rig, and that offshore oil rig is operated by technology, and the keys to the technology can be managed from the ground off of the, off the ocean in the land, then the students can start to conceptualize that there's not people that need to be on the oil rig running the oil rig. So that's one way to see that automation is infusing all that we do in business. And the digital twin technology, there's a really great study by the Stanford Living Heart Project, and they use digital twin technology to create representation of human hearts that they were doing surgery on. And they created that heart in 3D, and the surgeon walks the heart, feels where the integration points are of the heart and the blood vessels and the damage that they may be trying to repair. And that saved cost, resulted in less time for the doctors performing the surgery, as well as better patient outcomes. And that's a very simple study on how technology can be infused in thinking about the world in a new way.
Interesting. Thank you, Julie.
Amir, I just wanted to add something to that. The challenge that we're facing is not with the students. The challenge that we're facing, and I need to say this right, is with my colleagues from the other units. And again, it will be great. We do this interdisciplinary. Our courses are available to students in the business analytics program, for example, so that their students can come take our courses and study with our own students. But because they have a well-defined program in their own curriculum, it has not been easy to offer these courses to our students. So here we have Julie and Sarah, and we have Stacy from Visa offering these courses. We thought that this will just be such a great opportunity for them, but because their courses are so well defined, their program are so well defined, it's not very easy. So what we've decided to do is, instead of incorporating it into their curriculum, just let the students vote, cross-list the courses so that they get the credit hours, and then see what happens, from there. So this is where, we are, right now. Yeah.
Good solution, good solution. And some schools are also developing a certificate program that the students can pursue in addition to their regular diploma or regular undergrad course program, for example.
Yeah. And I see where they're coming from, but I think what the students are telling us, these students from, Accenture. And so one of the things that we've learned, what we've done is we follow the students. We have this lifelong learning where we have a relationship with the student. So name is Fabian. And so we did an exit interview. I talked to him, and Julie talks to him, multiple times. And so we said, now that you are on the job, what is it that we should incorporate in our program so that, we could at least cover this in the program, to make you more ready for this type of job. And I remember one of his response was saying, I wish I had a better understanding of the network and the architecture, on the IT side of things, while I'm trying to understand, while I'm studying the business applications. And so I'm talking to our colleagues and see what can we do, to address this. May not be a course, but it could just be, a seminar, for this type of students. Nicole, you had a question also about MBAs and undergraduates. You're on mute.
Yes, thank you. My question had to do with, it was something that Sarah said, and I find that when I'm teaching undergraduates versus MBAs versus perhaps executive MBAs, their uptake on and their speed at which they appreciate the process that we're talking about is quite different. And I'm wondering if you're finding that as well, and that there's probably more learning that has to be done by people that are in their 30s and up relative to the ones that are, I'm going to say, my students right now from 18 to 25. They are really savvy when it comes to what needs to be done. And I'm just wondering how you approach it when you're working with different kinds of generational cohorts.
Is that for me? Yeah. I mean, the programs that we have been, and I think this is also surprising, actually, like I was sort of saying before, it's about the mindset, right? And the ability to learn and put the time in, because we had, I mean, the one who I loved so much was a gentleman in Ghana, and I mean, I don't know his exact age, but he was well over 60, and he was embracing it like, you would not know. Honestly, I was just so impressed. And he'd never used Facebook or anything, at all, and certainly not for business. And, I mean, I think it's, what we try and do is to break it down and adapt it to the level, and just get people work out beforehand when we're designing the course, when we're working with companies, is to work out, where can we take them? So what's the opportunity? What could they do? I think somebody asked a question about that, about which sector or which industry is ripe for international e-commerce. We try and work out where they could get to, and then obviously do the classic where are they now, and then just see what we can get them to do, and then just feed them like in little chunks, and the content, so that they can actually implement it as we're going along. Because the programs we've been running are like 10-week programs with some online training and then some coaching afterwards.
And so that's with business people, not with students per se.
Not with students.
No. Okay. Because what I'm discovering is that my thoughts about what's really important are different from what an undergraduate thinks is really important, because they're so much more up to speed with the technology than I am, and I'm not an idiot. So I'm having to readjust my expectations about what to teach in the class when it comes to working with digital technologies because they've grown up with it.
Yeah. They're digital natives, right? As they say. And I think somebody else asked in the questions as well, there's so much information out there. Like, I mean, you need to know where it is and you need to know how to access it. But I mean, basically in terms of self-training, which is one of the questions, and sort of what you're saying is people will go, oh, how do I do that? And they'll just go onto YouTube and they'll see, say, for example, Facebook's a whole channel, and then they'll watch the video on how to set up a Facebook store. This is a lot of, how people are, practitioners are learning some of the content that is out there. And this is how they're increasing their skills. And, for example, you can learn a lot of the basics anyway, like the whole of the Facebook suite of training is very accessible. As long as you can get on there and you can just do it. It's free for everybody worldwide. It's not available, as we're just finding out, in some languages we're trying to put it into at the moment, like Georgian or Kurdish and things, but it is available in the world languages. You've got the same with Google. A lot of the Google content is all there, and the training courses are free. So I guess so in answer to the question in there, I think there are a lot of resources like that you can use to get started, and then I think then you've got the basics, the foundation, and then I guess it's about going on to a course such as yours, isn't it? And sort of getting that, how are you going to apply that, and to get the academic idea of how you can strategize with it, how you can use it tactically, how you can use it strategically within businesses, and practically. So I mean, there's so much, honestly, there is so much out there. I mean, that may be something we could do, Manuel, is I could just point you to all the basic things that we use on our courses.
In the interest of time, thank you, Sarah. In the interest of time, if we can spend some minutes on actually, with Nicole and Manuel, how you design and organize and deliver your IE courses. And in particular, for some of our participants who may not be teaching IE as a separate course, Manuel and Nicole, but they would like to incorporate some IE themes into their IB, regular IB course. Some tips on that, some suggestions on that, I think would be very much welcome.
Yeah, great point, Tamir. And again, from our past programs, many participants tell us this is one of the key takeaways that they want to, get from our program. Maybe Nicole, if you could start and talk about the resources that you have put together. If faculty
Sure, I'll just talk a little bit about how I use them as well. Karen, would you mind sharing the slides, please? And
let's go to the resources.
And one more. Great. Okay, so I actually use in my classes, both undergraduate and MBA classes, I use journal articles. And I know people sometimes find that's a bit surprising. I've heard my colleagues even say, oh, they're not interested in academic research. However, in this space, I think the academic research is more telling and useful than a lot of other resources, textbook-related resources that we might see. And so in combination with having students learn about how to use various technologies, so they do Hootsuite training, they do HubSpot training, and so on and so forth, I also bring in these papers that are, they're grounded research in the sense that much of the research in this field so far in this area is based on casework. And so even though they're academic papers and they have method sections and so on, the richness of case studies in these academic papers means they're really helpful from a learning process. And so if I'm just going to talk quickly about these articles, I use them in a way that the students actually have to, in teams, they get allocated one of the articles, and they have to not just read them, but they actually have to teach that article back to the class. And the way I implement that, and they seem to take to it like ducks to water, and it works really well, is they're not fazed by the fact that it's an academic article. They learn how to draw out the core insights, and then they have to find and apply their insights to practical examples. So they have to take everything they learned from the article and find live examples and then present to the class. And for some reason, the using journal articles works. So please feel free to give that a try. I really encourage it. So here's some different articles. This group here focused on specifically on platform firms. And I think it's important to recognize if you're dealing with an app or a platform firm or a different kind of a SaaS, pure play. Hold on a sec, Karen. You need to make the distinguish between the different types of firms. So Keith Brothers et al., this is a very early paper on what it means to be an outside of a network you're trying to get into when you're a platform firm. Chen et al. Talk about the same kind of thing and the liability of outsidership again, and the importance of country clout, recognizing the kind of country you're trying to get to digitally. There's differences between countries, and this concept of country clout is important. Ojala et al. From Finland, they look at what impact it has when a platform has different layers of architecture, which they do. What are the implications for internationalization? Max Stahlkamp did his PhD in this area, and this is from his PhD research. And he looks at the importance of network externalities and now how that has implications, for example, for location decisions and other internalization decisions. Karen, next one. Next point. A couple of apps-related papers. Noman Shahir, also a PhD student working in this area. These are all a bunch of relatively young scholars, Yang Chen, Max Stahlkamp, the others are a bit older. Noman Shahir here, looking at the role of the kind of classic CAGE framework that we use when we talk about internationalization in the context of apps from Apple. And in the Journal of International Marketing, he also talks about lead markets, which is relative to this issue of country clout. And in fact, I think Noman is on that paper as well. Next point, Karen, please. There are some really good papers that, well, sorry, I really like these papers. They highlight the role of a digital business model and what that means for internationalization. So one is from Jean-François Henart in 2014. He talked about the word accidental internationalist. I disagree with parts of this paper, but the concept of highlighting Atlassian as an Australian SaaS firm, the business model was instrumental to their ability to globalize. Monahan and Titman wrote a really cool paper in 2018 using a series of case studies, generally sitting in Ireland, which is where they are. And they were looking at how firms like Qualtrics and so on, SurveyMonkey, for example, became rapid multinationals. And the beauty of this paper is that it bridges international entrepreneurship with multinational research, and that's quite cool. Next slide. More articles that I use in class. Next, yep. We're now getting to a point, there's been, a bit of a rush of research in digital internationalization or digital globalization that's all quite fresh. But now we're already beginning to refine our understanding of things. So Max Stahlkamp and Andreas Schotter are understanding and teasing apart when, even if you're digitally international, you're not necessarily going to have to go fast. You might not want to go fast. So the ability to be a slow internationalizer when you are a digital firm and what the implications are for that. A paper that I wrote, nope, this is not my paper. This is Esther and Esther Titman and a few others. They're looking at the challenge that digital firms face when their business model means they have to replicate. At the same time, if you're going to international markets, replication is a challenge because there may be a requirement that you localize. So how do you replicate what you're doing when you also have to localize? So there's a paradox there. A recent paper by Kane, these are all new, as you can see, by Kane and Borini. They look specifically at digital competence, and there's 4 dimensions that they identify. If a firm is going to internationalize well, they need this digital competence. Next slide. This is an oldie paper from 2010, and I bring it up because it's now more relevant than it was when we published it, which is the role of digital technologies in allowing people like you and me to be international entrepreneurs. So I find it important to bring it into the classroom that if we're not just talking about large firms digitalizing their offers and then rethinking what they're doing, we're not just talking about born digitals. We're talking about people like you and me who can be international entrepreneurs because of digital technologies. And again, lots of live examples, case examples, and so on in all of these papers. And finally, There's a couple of papers that are really more food for thought, but I find them helpful to get the class discussing about where do you think everything is going. One of them is a paper that I wrote with Sinead Monahan and Esther Chipman in GIBS, and that is looking at the unanswered questions that we're still struggling with. And so even though we're teaching classes in this area, there's a long, long list of things that we still don't understand and companies are wrestling with. And then Ruber, Chipman, and Monahan, you can see there's common themes and names coming through here. So names like Max Stahlkamp, Sinead Monahan, Esther Chipman, Yanto Chandra, those are names that you should be watching out for in this space. This paper with Becky, Esther, and Sinead, they do something really interesting that's relevant for a class in international business, international entrepreneurship, or international marketing, is that they distinguish global scaling of digital firms and they separate it from international entrepreneurship, which I think is highly relevant. And the thing that I would add here is that I do all of this in the context of an international marketing course, not an international business course per se, although I would do it there as well. And we've watched our courses go from being, let's say, this much kind of classic IB or IM to about this much classic and that much in the digital context. And I would also say for you, there's a group of you that are looking at adding IB to entrepreneurship and others that are adding entrepreneurship to IB. I can tell you that research in international entrepreneurship is at that intersection, and it can be used in either type of course, either an entrepreneurship course or an international business / marketing course. Thanks.
Nicole,
Well,
thanks
that's
very
very
much.
interesting. Given that we're talking about entrepreneurship, what kind of student projects, I mean, do you, in teaching international marketing, for example, do you ask your students, require your students in groups or individually to do maybe a new business venture kind of project? What are some experiential projects you incorporate?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit lucky because it's situated here in Waterloo at the Lazaridis Institute. I have access, and I'm active with access to the scale-up companies. And those companies are generally have Series A funding. They're maybe 45 to 48 employees, average 8 to 10 million per annum in annual revenue, and international. So I get those companies to come to my students, and I get my students to do projects with those companies that could be, they're generally very specific about something in terms of looking at maybe a new product launch that they are considering, and looking at how, given that their presence is in certain markets, and these are all tech firms, I should also clarify, sorry, these are all tech firms, and they're not always born digital, but they always have an aspect of digital and machine learning and so on in their business model. Even if they are producing, we have one company that has the only bed bug treatment that is FDA approved, which is a big deal in the US. That's their cash cow. It's not typically what you call high tech, but their work around green chemistry is, and they have a large digital component as well. The students work with them. So I create a variety of projects for that.
Interesting. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, and Tamir, let me add to that too. What I've tried during the last 2 years is having students do project on, the global sharing economy, and so we have the globalization of work. So students do work related in that space. They can talk about big companies like the work sharing economy. For example, TaskUs and others. They're also very, very interested on global social gaming. And so you identify those spaces that are of interest to them, build a project around that, and you get them more engaged. In terms of shorter cases, for example, and I've used the case of K-pop, and that has connected very well with this younger generation. And so how has K-pop leveraged digital technologies, particularly again during the pandemic? Many had predicted that the pandemic will be a major hurdle for them. But what they did was actually translate this into an opportunity. So if you've been to a K-pop, concert, for example, a BTS concert, you and I have not been, but my kids talk to me about it. They share with me what they have done, to optimize presence and revenue. It's just amazing. They can fill a stadium of 70,000 people and have those spend a lot of money, during the concert. So I think it is a question of knowing, your audience and again, tying it to what's of interest to them.
Excellent, excellent. Carol Finnegan Carol is asking about simulations. Any recommended simulations for others without access to companies?
I haven't found any simulations in this space. It doesn't mean that they're not there. And I appreciate that not everybody has access to the companies. What I have learned to do is, and this is the beauty of COVID, is I then try and, I don't want to saturate the class, but in every class, so during COVID, for example, we didn't have that live interaction, but I brought in a speaker in every class that was, had to be introduced by the students, and then they talked more like a fireside chat rather than a lecture, and then the students got to have a conversation with them. And with Zoom, for example, we talk about gaming, Manuel. I would bring in, without hesitation, somebody from Finland, and because of the gaming history of success in Finland with games. And we can do that with Zoom, as I've never been able to reach out like that before. So I think if you can't have them doing live projects, you can have them learn from people through Zoom, and you can pick up on people from all over the world as long as they're willing to accommodate your time zone. And the other thing I would say is that with, if you go to a Harvard Business School case site, or the case, there's a big case repository, I can't remember the name of it, or Ivy Business School's website, there are a lot of very interesting cases that may not be, you'll have to choose your keywords carefully, but if you talk about rapid growth, digital growth, digitalization, those kinds of things, you will find some very fun cases that the students will engage with. The challenge with most of us, I think, and this relates to the research, I think Julie would have noticed right away that nothing here is related to quantum or Bitcoin or blockchain or anything like that. It's because we're still trying to figure that one out and how to teach it best in the classroom. And so we need people like Julie to be able to come in and deliver that kind of information.
Right, well said.
Yeah, Tamir, your question earlier, let me just share with the participants that, we're putting together a resource guide. We're updating our resource guide, and we'll have it on our website, and we'll share it, with you, Tamir. And in the website, there will be sample syllabi, that you can use, not just in IB or IE, but also other areas. So we're putting this, together. And so more on this, and we do have a seminar workshop coming up that Nicole is hosting in July, and all of the participants here, will get a notice, on that. We're fully subscribed, but Nicole was kind enough to agree to, expand, the number, so we may have space for 5 or so more, participants, especially those who are interested in doing work in this particular space. Sorry, Tamir, I just wanted
excellent. Excellent. That's great. Thank you. That'll be very well received. Now, we just have a few minutes, Manuel and our distinguished panelists. Perhaps we can each take a few minutes, couple of minutes for some last words of wisdom, some concluding comments. Shall we start with Sarah? Sarah, you were talking about the ABBAs and avatars.
No, it was coming back to the digital twin that you were talking about earlier. I mean, I was thinking, and you were saying about going to concerts. So I mean, there's a concert without the band even there, right? And it's sold out for months. So yeah, that's it's equivalent, isn't it, of reimagining products and services basically across the digital. yeah, I guess, you know, for me, I mean, it's obviously my passion is global e-commerce, and it's just for me, it's I guess giving the students the opportunity to try out. I love the way that you're actually getting them to run the businesses and things like that. I mean, I think you could, that, you know, that is really the best way to learn with any digital, I think, is to actually do it practically, because, you know, you can see it, and then you can also see the impact that it has as well. So that's probably, yeah, what I would do is get them, like they're doing with Julie, is to actually run projects and set up little companies and go for it, really.
Excellent. Julie, your course that you develop and are teaching is really a role model, I think, for many of us around the world. You may want to say a few more words on that. I mean, how it evolved, the response from the students, and what others can, how others can replicate your experience.
Yeah, sure. So it's been a really great response from the students. So the students really love the lab where we get our hands dirty with some real live examples in the blockchain space, even if it's not a full deployment. Some of the feedback I've got that they learn to think about technology from a business perspective and get to experience the possibilities, the advantages, and some of the cost estimates. That's real feedback from a current student. And, you know, I would say, given that it's very intuitive to the students, if you can give them a construct of looking for digitization and what they know about today, you know, whatever that may be, look for a cloud solution. And we talk to set the stage about iPhone cloud pictures and how it's accessible anywhere. And if that's the case, just to change how you consume things on your cell phone, then what is a similar theme in the business world? And I think you'll find that they will bring technology to the class and be happy to explain it. For example, the first project we do as a team, I let the team decide what technology they're going to focus on. And I asked them to do a build versus buy decision around that technology. Something we all know in the business world that crosses entrepreneurship as well as almost any business class, right? And they bring the technology to that build or buy decision. I've had them do drones. I've had them do 3D printing. I've had them do aerial photographs using drones. I've had them do cloud. So they bring the technology and we talk about it in a build versus buy landscape in front of the entire class. So that's one way just to get them talking. And I think you'll find they're pretty natural at bringing it to the table.
Very exciting. I'd love to be a student in your class, Julie. It sounds really like an experience. Nicole, if we can turn to you for some last words, concluding comments, and Manuel will have the last word.
Yes, I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. This is it's quite a funny thing. I've been a researcher in international entrepreneurship for my whole career, basically, which goes back. Somebody told me recently it was 4 decades, which was a bit gross. But
not really.
It's been a while. Anyways, I have only been able to teach international entrepreneurship since I moved back to Canada, which is quite interesting, and I really love it. And I would really encourage you, if you are kind of a mainstream IB person or a mainstream entrepreneurship person, this is one way to really revitalize your course and to give you, I think, a really useful perspective about what contemporary international business and entrepreneurship is all about.
Well said, and I think the world of IB educators is blessed with what you produce, both in terms of scholarship.
Thank you, Tamer.
Really, I mean, you are definitely a leader in the discipline, and yes, you've done this in a period, a very short period.
Oh, thank you.
Decades. I don't think that person knew what they were talking about. Manuel?
Yeah, Tamir, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Always appreciate our collaboration with you. To our colleagues who are here, this is a very, very interesting time, to be teaching, researching, practicing international entrepreneurship. If you're in international business, incorporating the entrepreneurial aspects. If you're in entrepreneurship, incorporating the international aspects. This is such a wonderful time. I often tell my colleagues, I wish I was younger. Because there's just so much happening. But the good news is now I don't have to do everything. My students, my colleagues, my partners in industry like Sarah and Julie, are very, very eager, very excited, to work, with us. So please, stay tuned. Make sure you continue, this partnership with GSU and with CU Denver, because we'll be doing a lot more. In the next 4 years. We just finished the cyber grant, competition in this particular space. Again, Tamir, thank you very much. Nicole, thank you. Great, to work with you. Looking forward to our coming projects. Sarah and Julie, thank you so much for joining us, and to the team here, thanks for hosting us.
Excellent. This has been a very informative, very exciting session. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Julie, Sarah, Nicole, and Manuel, and Karen, and Paula, and everybody else who's been involved. We look forward to seeing you at another joint webinar next week. I think you've seen something about next week's theme. So you have a good rest of your day, and take care.
Thank you.